Hello again. We have since the turn of the century, year 2000, been somehow persuaded that modern children are fatter and less fit than those in the 1960s. Those baby boomers were always running about, getting exercise and being provided with tasty and healthy meals by their mothers. Not like these days when they sit around looking at their phones all day long and kids live on takeaways and sweets. No wonder there's an obesity crisis. Except, of course, there isn't. The whole thing is an optical illusion caused by nostalgia. We have chosen the childhood of the baby boomers as a yardstick, and if the lives of modern children vary from this pattern, then it is evidence of a deterioration in the quality of their lives. Children in 2024 should weigh the same as those in the 1950s and 1960s, read the same amount, and get as much exercise. Otherwise, there's a problem which needs to be addressed. It is this peculiar perspective which has created out of thin air the modern obesity crisis among our children. The absurdity of this business, which is also directed at adults, of course, may be shown when you consider a claim such as the following, which is seriously presented as evidence of an obesity time bomb, as some have described it. It's customary when discussing obesity to mention that in some year in the past, people weighed less than they do today. So we are told that the average man in the late 1950s weighed 10.2 stone, as opposed to today's average of 13.2 stone. The inescapable conclusion being that we are now a nation of porkers. Of course, if we go back another 50 years or so, we find that the average weight of recruits to the British Army in 1900 was less than 9 stone. It was 8 stone, 8 stone 12, 8 stone 13. Perhaps this, rather than the 1950s average, should be used as our standard when thinking about obesity. What is it which leads us to believe that 10.2 stone, and not, say, 8.7 stone, should be the ideal weight upon which we should found all our hopes and expectations for the future of the nation's children? Why should anything over this be regarded as dangerous? The answer is that the years in which the baby boomers were growing up have been chosen as being the platonic ideal of childhood. The reason that we are reading a lot in newspapers about overweight children is, of course, that following the trend for the last century or so, children in Britain now weigh more than they once did. This has been a constant process since 1900 or so. Because modern children do not spend as much time out of doors as they did, in the years following the end of the Second World War, older politicians, doctors and others have convinced themselves that the increase in weight of their own children and grandchildren must somehow be tied in with an unhealthy lifestyle, and that something must be done to get these children to start eating the sort of diet popular in the 1950s, climbing trees, walking to school and playing in parks again. This is, of course, all nonsense. Look at a class of primary school children and you'll find that they look pretty much like a class of kids from the 1950s, except that there are a few in their photographs from the 50s who are obviously malnourished. It's true that in a modern class of children, a couple are likely to be fat, but that was always the case. Remember Billy Bunter? School classes have always had a few fat kids in them. I've written about this topic in greater detail on my Substack account, and in the description to this video I give a link to the essay on this topic. It is, of course, free to read and explores the subject of childhood obesity in considerable detail.